You are listening to KC Sports Network, the #1 podcast network for today's Kansas City sports fans. With former players from your favorite teams, informed perspectives, and former insiders, this is the place for you. KC Sports Network is proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the second ever episode of 10 Things. I'm DJ Kissel, and today we're going to talk through 10 things I loved from Sunday's dominating 44-21 performance and victory over the Arizona Cardinals. This show is brought to you by the amazing people at KC Strength and Conditioning. Their specialty is training prep baseball and softball athletes. But if you're a little older and growing in the wrong directions, as I am, and you just want to get in better shape, call John over there. I've known him since we were in high school, and he's always been a guy to go to for this kind of information and training. Proud to call them a partner here at KC Sports Network. Call John with KC Strength and Conditioning at 913-638-8960. John will get you right, and he'll take care of you and your athletes. All right, it was actually a challenge to narrow down this to just 10 things that I loved from Sunday, because there were so many good things that we saw on both sides of the ball from the Chiefs. But I'm going to give it a go with the help of the internet, some research, a calculator, and the Chiefs communications department's post-game notes, which are mixed in here as well with a little more context added into this as well. And again, there's a lot of content here at KC Sports Network, and we know that, but felt like a lot of this just hard information was being missed. And so that's what this show is all about, to provide those stats, those nuggets, those records, and just kind of hit the meat of them a lot more. So let's get it started with the man in charge at number one, and that is obviously head coach Andy Reid. On Sunday, Andy Reid began his 10th season leading the Chiefs after 14 years leading the Philadelphia Eagles, and Reid became the only head coach in NFL history to lead two franchises for 10 or more seasons. He has tallied 234 regular season wins in his head coaching career at these two stops, which is good for 5th on the NFL's all-time wins list by head coaches, trailing only Tom Landry, Bill Belichick, George Halas, and Don Shula. I mean, we are talking about the golden age of Chiefs football, and bringing Andy Reid to Kansas City was the greatest move in the history of the Chiefs organization. And I don't say that lightly. Sans Lamar Hunt actually bringing the Chiefs to Kansas City will always be number one. Outside of that, and any other moves once they became the Chiefs, it's all about bringing Andy Reid. And I know for Clark Hunt, I can't imagine how often he thinks about how important it was for the entire organization to put that full court press on Andy Reid when they flew to Philly to basically intercept Coach Reid and his wife Tammy before they flew off to other visits. That's been written about. I personally wrote about that when I was at the Chiefs on Andy Reid's long form. But for them to meet in the airport terminal for hours longer than originally planned, to shoo away the limo that was going to take them to their next stop and out to the plane and take them out to San Diego, Arizona, wherever it was at the time. I mean, that trip and that decision to fly out there and press coach the way they did for Clark Hunt and the Chiefs organization. I mean, that trip led us to, again, the best stretch of football in the organization's history. And it's important for us to all continue to realize that we're living right smack in the middle of something that we will be telling our kids and grandkids about for years to come. Moving along to number 2 on things I loved from Sunday. And let's roll with week 1 success under Andy Reid. Now, with that 44-21 victory, the Chiefs have won their last 8 season opening games dating back to 2015. The Chiefs have outscored their opponents 291-198 in those 8 wins. That's winning those games by an average of almost 12 points per game. They are dominant right off the bat, and that's because they are prepared and they are ready to go, and that is a direct reflection of Andy Reid and his coaching staff teaching, being well prepared, getting the guys ready to play, especially with a young team. We've talked so much about the defense and how many new faces there were out there for Steve Spagnuolo and his entire staff to have the guys ready to play and play at the level they did right off the bat. Really, really impressive. And so, and it obviously it helps when your quarterback, who is now 5-0 in his week 1 starts, averages more than 300 yards per game, completes more than 70% of his passes, and throws 18 touchdowns and no interceptions in those 5 games in week 1 over the last 5 years. but yet, according to some analytics sites out there, still graded as an average performance from Patrick Mahomes, who we'll get to here in a second. But if you give Andy Reid time to prepare, it seems to be a good thing. We talk about his record off the bye, but starting off strong in 9 of his 10 years in Kansas City with a victory. I mean, again, we're lucky, Chiefs Kingdom. Please don't take this for granted. Now let's move on to the quarterback with number 3, and that's Patrick Mahomes, finishing Sunday's game, completing 30 of 39 passes for 360 yards and no interceptions. That was good for a 144.2 passer rating. It actually marks his 6th career game with 5 or more touchdown passes, and his first performance since a 5 TD performance at Las Vegas back in 2021 on November 14th. Now, of his 6 games with 5 or more touchdown passes, 5 of those have actually come on the road. Again, it seems like we're talking video game numbers with Patrick Mahomes, but we just keep adding them up. I don't envy the Chiefs PR staff. I know they love looking up these stats. I'm sure they do, but it's a lot of work to continuously stay up to date on all the records that this dude is breaking. Another one, with those 360 passing yards, Patrick Mahomes recorded his franchise record extending 32nd career game with 300 or more passing yards. Ladies and gentlemen, Patrick Mahomes is 26 years old, already has the franchise record for 300-yard passing games. You can take that a lot of different ways. I take it as we're watching history being made, and we need to enjoy this. When you add the context that, not saying that Patrick Mahomes is going to play as long as Tom Brady. Tom Brady's 45 years old. That means if Patrick Mahomes plays that long, we have 19 more years of Patrick Mahomes playing football at a high level. Again, that's making a big comparison in longevity and all those things with health. But still, that context is just crazy to think about. Now let's move on to number 4. Also, Patrick Mahomes. And as according to NFL research, Patrick Mahomes is one of 6 players in NFL history with at least 6 games of 5 or more passing touchdowns. Let me read that again. Patrick Mahomes is now one of 6 players in NFL history with at least 6 career games of 5 or more passing touchdowns. The other 5 quarterbacks, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, and Dan Marino. Only one of those guys is still playing. Obviously, Tom Brady, just talked about him being 45 years old. All of those other 5 guys each played in at least 240 or more career games. I'm slowing this down for effect. Again, the other 5 quarterbacks with at least 6 career games of 5 or more passing touchdowns: Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, Dan Marino. All of them played at least 240 career games. Mahomes has played in 64 career games. It's unbelievable when you start contextualizing some of these stats in these ways. The reason that we do a show like this, because a lot of the stuff can get glossed over. You watch a highlight, but when you really start to think about how special this has been, it's why we say things like this is the best start to a quarterback that we've ever seen in NFL history. And when you look at stats like this, it's not particularly close. Now let's move on to number 5. Also a Patrick Mahomes stat, but this will be the last one for today. I have a feeling he's going to end up on this 10 things that I loved. It could be a 10 things I hated. It could be a 10 things you missed, or 10 observations. It could be a 10 things of anything moving forward with this show. But this was a bad idea by the Arizona Cardinals. Now, we've known this, but nobody seemed to tell Cardinals defensive coordinator Vance Joseph. Now, I say that jokingly, but seriously, we talk about this, and it's a widely known thing for a 26-year-old quarterback. And the fact that it's widely known, you should have known. You don't blitz Patrick Mahomes. And the Cardinals not only blitzed Patrick Mahomes, they blitzed him on more than half of his dropbacks for the first time in his career. 54% of the time, Patrick Mahomes went back in the pocket to throw a pass. They sent extra guys at him, which means less guys in coverage. Mahomes threw a career-high 4 touchdown passes versus the blitz, tied for the most in a game in the next-gen stats era. That stat was courtesy of next-gen stats. Again, since 2016, most touchdown passes versus the blitz. Unbelievable. Most NFL sites and analysts have widely agreed that blitzing Patrick Mahomes will result in something mirroring the create a player scenarios you did as an 11-year-old playing video games and wanting to create the most dominant player to ever live. That's basically Patrick Mahomes against the blitz. And I don't use this word lightly, and I'm sorry if it offends, but that was dumb. Now, let's take a quick word from DraftKings. Kansas, the wait is over. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is officially live in Kansas just in time for football season. That means betting legally on same-game parlays, spreads, money lines, and more anytime and anywhere across the Sunflower State. To celebrate, DraftKings is giving new Kansas customers a can't-miss offer. Bet just $5 on anything and get $200 in free bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code KCSN to get $200 in free bets instantly when you place a $5 bet on anything. That's code KCSN only at DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook. Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 1-800-522-4700. Must be 21, physically present in Kansas. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus issued as free bets. One early win token issued at opt-in. Moneyline bets only. Deposit and wagering restrictions apply. Eligibility and terms at DraftKings.com/Kansas on behalf of Boot Hill Resort and Casino. Now, this is not going to make the 10 things, but personally, for myself, one of the greatest 10 things to happen on Sunday was the Jody Fortson anytime bet that I placed with my DraftKings account that netted me a couple $100 because Jody Fortson catches 2 touchdowns in the red zone in the preseason. You look at Jody Fortson, red zone target. It's not next level analysis to think that. Well, his odds were crazy. It was like plus 800. So I'll take that with one of my $25 free bets that I was given with my DraftKings account by signing up. Netted a couple $100, so I can bet some more featured bets on Jody Fortson, although I feel like those odds are going to come down a little bit more. Fantastic catch for Jody Fortson. Isn't in the top 10 here, but fantastic play, and had a lot of fun playing around with my DraftKings account. And if you like DraftKings, go to the KCSN League. We've got it on our social media accounts. You can play against all the hosts at KC Sports Network in the DraftKings League. You can find that at KCSN. Now, moving on to number 6, the recipient of many of those passes from Patrick Mahomes, the greatest tight end to ever live, Travis Kelce. And he finished the game with 121 receiving yards on 8 catches with a touchdown. Kelce now owns 30 career regular season games with 100 or more receiving yards, extending his franchise record. His 30 career games with 100 or more receiving yards are the third most in NFL history, trailing only Rob Gronkowski, who has 32, and Tony Gonzalez, who has 31. So, for context, Kelce needs 3 more 100-yard games at any point in his career to have the most, or have the NFL record for most ever by a tight end. He already has the record for consecutive 1,000-yard seasons. I mean, he had that 3 years ago when he hit his 4th consecutive season. I think he's looking for his 7th or 8th at this point. But he's been adding on to these record books ever since. And when it's all said and done, those who watched him and those who just look at the stats after the fact will come up with the same conclusion. Travis Kelce is the best to ever do it at that position. And most importantly, Travis Kelce is a genuinely good dude who has done good things for the right reasons in Kansas City and in his home in Cleveland Heights, Ohio. Now, whether there's a camera in his face or not, Travis Kelce has been a great example of what it looks like to do things the right way and should be celebrated as much for what he's doing on the field as what he has done off the field. Again, whether he's getting credit for it or not, know from personal experience, he's a good dude. All right, let's do one more scoring and one more offensive thing, and then we'll talk about the defense. Not fair to them, but we'll have plenty of content throughout the rest of this week on KC Sports Network praising the Chiefs defense. But number 7, after leaving the game in the first quarter, after the first basically kickoff, after the Chiefs' first touchdown, Harrison Butker suffered that ankle injury and returned later in the first half to convert a 54-yard field goal with less than 10 seconds left in the first half. The 54-yard field goal gave him 21 career-made field goals of 50 or more yards, moving him out of a tie with Nick Lowry for first place on the franchise's all-time list. Now, that's a great feat in and of itself, breaking that record from Nick Lowry is one of the greatest Chiefs kickers, along with Jan Stenerud to ever play. But the fact that Harrison Butker did that, kicking a 50-plus yard field, a 54-yard field goal on a bum ankle is one thing. He took one step to kick a 54-yard field goal. So I'm putting this out there that will be one of the best and most impressive from a physical standpoint 54-yard field goals. That's not a game winner or anything like that you will ever see. But again, him taking one step and absolutely drilling that thing. It's why they talk about his range being out to 70 yards if they're ever in a situation in which they feel comfortable with him kicking from that far. You miss from that far, you're giving the other team not a lot of space for themselves to get within scoring position. So it'd have to be an end of the half type deal when time's going to expire. But again, one of the craziest 54-yard field goals and most impressive from a physical standpoint 54-yard field goals that you'll ever see. All right, and finally, for the offense, we've got to give Clyde Edwards-Helaire some love here at number 8. Clyde finished the game with 7 carries for 42 yards, added 3 catches for 32 yards, and had the couple of touchdown scores, one on the shovel pass, another one in the flat where nobody seems really to be around him. The shovel pass one, such a great play design that Joe Thuney was the lead blocker on that play, and nobody was within 5-6 yards of the running back. I mean, Joe Thuney was 5 yards into the end zone before he was even looking for somebody to block with the play. It came from the 1 or 2 yard line. So great play design. But it was great to see Clyde Edwards-Helaire step up. And again, those 10 touches for 74 yards from scrimmage in more of a high leverage situation. At the end of the game, those numbers aren't going to jump out to you, but for those who watched the game, Clyde was making his impact when the game was close, when we didn't know what the final score was going to be. It was great to see Clyde step up and have a game like that, showed some burst, showed some quickness, broke through some tackles. It's everything you want to see from him. And then you add in the flashes that we saw from Jerick McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco in the running game as well, as Pacheco finished the game with a team high 12 yards for 62 yards and his first career touchdown in his first career game. Chiefs running game is a stock way up kind of deal right now. I talked about that with Matt Miller during KCSN Update and his stock up, stock down report. So go check that out if you haven't already. But that running game, that's going to matter at some point. Ended up not really mattering for the Chiefs in this game. I don't think, although it did set the tone early, I don't think they needed that with Patrick Mahomes and company playing the way that they did. But the fact the running game did that, and they didn't have Trey Smith, who missed a chunk of the game with a ankle injury. Hopefully that's not too serious, especially with the short week against the Chargers. But great to see from the Chiefs running game, adding in there and getting their work done. Couple of points left here for the Chiefs defense, and I know they deserve more love, but I am just out of numbers. And you can check out tomorrow's KCSN Update with my guy Nate Taylor from The Athletic, and I will make sure with his 5 burning questions that at least 3 of those are about the Chiefs defense, to give those guys some love. Again, we got a short week with the Chargers game coming up, and the defense is absolutely going to have to play not only as well as they did, but perhaps even better based on what we know the Chargers to be and what we saw from Justin Herbert and that crew in their first game. Although it seems like they're not going to have Keenan Allen in this one on Thursday night, and probably won't have JC Jackson as well, but we'll have more on that at KC Sports Network throughout the week. But while you're at this, please like and subscribe if you're watching this video on YouTube. And if you're listening to the audio podcast, please give us a 5-star review and follow us. Make sure you're not missing any content. We've got about 16 to 18 pieces of Chiefs content a week on this channel, including some film breakdowns. Some guys like Matt Castle and Derek Johnson, Jeff Allen, Mike DeVito hop on. We've got former players. We have analysts. We've got national media who come on every week. A lot of cool stuff going on. So please hit that like and subscribe button. And for number 9, let's talk about the pressure created by the Chiefs defense in that front, because it was a storyline all offseason, is that they've got to get more pressure on opposing quarterbacks. And Mike Dana, George Karlaftis, and Chris Jones each stepped up and had 6 quarterback pressures individually on Sunday afternoon against the Cardinals and Kyler Murray, pacing the Chiefs in that category. As a team, they finished with 28 total quarterback pressures on the day, making life uncomfortable for Kyler Murray and just really throwing a wrench into everything that they wanted to do, as did getting down early. But you add some context to what those 28 pressures mean. The Chiefs defense last year averaged 18.7 quarterback pressures per game. And they only surpassed the 28 we saw from this group on Sunday twice all of 2021. That was week 4 against the Eagles when they had a whopping 40 quarterback pressures. It was a good one. And then in week 14 against the Raiders when they had 35. Another great performance by a group that overall struggled last year. So getting pressure on the opposing quarterback was a talking point again all offseason, and the defense stepped up and delivered, making life uncomfortable for Kyler Murray. They're going to have to do the same thing on Thursday night against Justin Herbert if the Chiefs are going to have an opportunity to go 2-0 and start what is going to look, what we've already talked about being one of the most brutal schedules in recent NFL history or Chiefs history, with the just stacked lineup that these guys have to face every week. But it was great to see the guys getting pressure. It's great to see George Karlaftis making an impact. You don't always see rookie defensive linemen stepping up and making huge impacts right off the bat. but can't be surprised. If you've been following any of our content, can't be surprised in what we saw from George Karlaftis, but great to see it when it counts. Now, finally, at number 10, if you've followed our post-game show, this is not a surprise. Or if you listen to KCSN Update with Matt Miller, this will not be a surprise to you. But my favorite stretch in the entire game against the Arizona Cardinals was actually on the defensive side of the ball. And that's when we saw those guys step up in a big moment. I myself put a lot of stock into the mental momentum type. When are their backs against the wall? When are they going to have to overcome some stuff? When is there going to be some leverage against them where they have to fight back against it? And that happened in this game, and it shouldn't be forgotten. And it's what gives me more confidence than anything else that the Chiefs defense did. When the Chiefs were leading 20-7 late in the first half, the defense did their job. They stopped the Cardinals offense and got the ball back to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs offense with a little more than a minute remaining again in the first half. Now, on the first play, once the Chiefs offense got the ball back, Patrick Mahomes hit Juju Smith-Schuster across the middle for what was a huge gain, but Juju was stripped from behind. He didn't feel the linebacker coming down the line or coming down the seam, basically. And the linebacker stripped the ball from him, and it was recovered by the Cardinals. So there's a potential momentum shift as the Cards had the ball at that point at the Chiefs' 42-yard line, almost within, field goal range. And they had a chance to score, and they were getting the ball back to begin the second half. The Cardinals were. So this was a huge test for the Chiefs defense. Again, we didn't know what the final score was going to be at that time. It was 20-7. Chiefs had some momentum, but if the Cardinals go down and get a touchdown, and then it's a one-possession game, and they get the ball to start the second half, could be a completely different deal. And for a young defense to feel really good about themselves, stopping the Cardinals, giving the ball back to Patrick Mahomes in the offense, which at that point, they were absolutely on fire. You were feeling good about it. You were on the road, crowds out of the game. Then you have a ball stripped from your guy, and everything could have changed. But the Chiefs defense not only stepped up and showed that they can kind of step up when called upon, but they forced a 3-and-out. And it was highlighted by the spectacular diving pass breakup from safety Juan Thornhill. If you remember that play, the ball was going to Andy Isabella along the sidelines. His feet were inbounds. He was going to catch that football, and it was going to put them within striking distance, try and get a touchdown, and at minimum a field goal. But Juan Thornhill came seemingly flying out of nowhere, fully laying out, almost making the interception. I don't know if he would have got his feet down, but a fantastic pass breakup right there from Juan Thornhill. And that sequence of events could have changed the momentum and the complexity of the game. And even if it was just for a little while, the Chiefs were a much better team. They proved that, but it was a test for the Chiefs defense at a time where there weren't going to be a ton of tests based on what we know happened the rest of the game. But that was a huge test for a young group, and they passed. And it's a reason to feel confident about their mental ability to step up when called upon on short notice. Those types of things are going to happen in really, really big games. And that was an example that you can think of and you can feel comfortable with if it happens again. Like, hey, we've seen this group step up and do this before. So that was the thing that I loved most that I saw from the Chiefs defense. And that's all we've got for these 10 things. And there's just so much more that we can get to from this game, like Nick Bolton's tackle in space. I think it was the Cardinals' first offensive drive. It was second and long early in the game. Kyler was scrambling, and Nick Bolton got off a block and made an open field tackle on one of the quarterbacks who's most dangerous in the open field with Kyler Murray, other than the fact that he's just hard to see because he's pretty short, and not to make a short joke, but he's also pretty quick and agile in open space. And Nick Bolton, a Mike linebacker, talk about his lateral agility and all that. Phenomenal play for him to stop Kyler Murray short of the first down marker, forcing a 3rd and short. On the very next play, Steve Spagnuolo blitzed L'Jarius Sneed for a sack and a loss on the play, forced him to punt. Chiefs go down, score another touchdown. That all was possible because Nick Bolton did a fantastic job getting off a block and making a great tackle in space on Kyler Murray. That is complimentary football at its absolute best. So thank you for watching and or listening to this episode of 10 Things. We'll have you covered every step of the way as the Chiefs get ready for the Thursday night game and the home opener at Arrowhead Stadium against the Los Angeles Chargers, who snuck one out over the Las Vegas Raiders. That game ended up being a lot closer than a lot of people had expected, especially when you look at the box score and you see how well Justin Herbert played. So Nick Bolton, Juan Thornhill, and the guys on the Chiefs defense and all the pressure that they had created up front, they're going to need to do that again if they're going to come out with a victory on Thursday. But we appreciate everybody for listening to this episode, and we will see you all next time.